Growing Up Weird.
Hi, and welcome to Growing Up Weird, the podcast where we explore how the earliest chapters of Western childhoods shape the health stories that we then carry into our adulthoods. I'm Dr. Greg Dickens, scientist and consultant in medical innovation, and I am here with Dr. Gwen Bradbury.
Hello.
Who is a healthcare researcher, author, and your guide through the science, stories, and traditional strategies that connect childhood beginnings to lifelong good health. Each week, we dig into the newest evidence, understand how it links together, and walk through some of the changes that we in the West could make to give kids decades of better health. So, whether you're a parent, a teacher, a healthcare professional, or simply curious about how the body and brain develop over time, you're in the right place. Are you ready? Have you got a cup of tea? Good. We begin, as ever, with the news. Gwen, have you got any news today?
I do, Greg. How about you?
I have one news.
Okay.
A new, if you will.
Well, should we start with you? Because we always start with me.
Heck yeah. Amazing. My news came via the Nature website, which sometimes is very useful and sometimes just talks about fusion. And today has been very useful. A paper which was published 2 days ago with lead author Delia Georgia, who spectacularly is from the Transylvanian Institute of Neuroscience, currently on secondment to the University of Oxford, Department of Psychiatry. So she's one of those rare neuropsycho people.
Okay, all right.
Love a neuropsycho. And her and Morgana Kunze, Nicola Filippi, Ligiana Pitre, and Sarah Baumeister have published a really interesting paper where they scanned the brains of a bunch of 70-year-olds and then asked them about their mums. Yeah, right? Simple get up. Put 476 old people, men and women, into MRIs and then asked them about their mums.
Okay.
And they use a retrospective maternal bonding, quite well evidenced process.
Oh, I think I'm seeing where this might be going. All right.
Yeah. And they looked at the volume of their lower dorsal striatum, the combination of your caudate nucleus and your putamen, which is the center of, well, one of the centers of motor control that leads to habit formation and the mastery of fine motor skills, and part of your cognitive flexibility area, so how well you can think out new ways to do stuff. That combination of here's what I'm going to do and here's how I'm going to do it.
Okay, yeah.
An innovation part of the brain, if you will.
Okay.
And they said, right, let's look at the volume of this area. Now, personally, I think that assessing the volume of bits of the brain to see how good they are at stuff is fraught. But since reading this paper, I've checked a few other papers, and assessing volume to see how good part of your brain is at doing its job is quite well accepted.
Well established. Okay.
I find that really weird, but I guess if it's a bigger computer and it's got the same stacking, then it is probably a better computer. Anyway, they found that in people who described a very caring relationship with their mother, at 70, they had a higher volume of this area of the brain, implying a better ability to plan, etc. In people who were given more autonomy, in general, it was higher, but those people who were given very low autonomy, also higher. Now, does that imply that children given low autonomy are quite good at rebelling? I don't know. But the one that really stuck out and has the highest statistical significance is that people with very controlling mothers have massively lower adult volume of this part of their brain.
So basically what you're saying, that if someone else is dictating how you explore the world, you find it harder to explore the world.
If somebody else is dictating how you explore the world, as a 70-year-old, you show signs that you have spent your adult life struggling to explore the world.
Fascinating. That's
Interesting,
really
isn't it?
Yeah.
I struggle as a parent sometimes to not dictate exactly how my children enjoy the world. And when they walk past something amazing, I'm like, no, stop, look at this thing. And they're like, no, I want to go and play on the mud. And I will be taking this study as a marker of just let them do their own darn thing sometimes.
Yeah.
Anyway, there you go. There's my paper from the University of Oxford and the Transylvanian Institute of Neuroscience.
Love it.
Your news then.
Okay, my news this week is about induction of labour, which is a topic that I find really fascinating.
Minefield.
Yeah, it's an absolute minefield, and it's something that has been increasing dramatically across the world. Basically, using medicines or mechanical means to bring a baby out of the uterus before it is ready. And we've talked before about the links between induction of labour and short and long-term poor health outcomes for both the mother and baby, especially for the baby. And we've also talked about caesarean sections and the risk of worse health outcomes for the baby in the long term as well.
Yeah.
Now, it's generally accepted that that caesarean section has more consequences than induction of labour.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah, and so induction of labour has been suggested as a way to reduce the number of caesarean sections in a kind of
okay,
so
Robin Peter
potentially
St. Paul sort of way.
Yes, exactly. So there's been a lot of discussion about whether or not you should induce women at certain dates or for certain characteristics, and a recent study, and one of those characteristics is ethnicity. So it's known that migrant women in a high income country, so women who weren't born in that country, have a higher risk of adverse birth outcomes, which ranges from stillbirth being the really big one, but also just generally worse rates of maternal and baby health in the early period.
Do you want to go into why?
So there's a whole bunch of factors, some which may be biological and are certainly linked to biology, but I haven't unpicked the science. So around when the placenta matures, although I think that a lot of the ethnicity research is massively confounded, so I'm not going to put a particular weight on that. But certainly it's known that structural racism, difficulties in communication, lack of recognition of cultural norms and acceptances, all of these things mean that, potentially women they have a different relationship with their caregivers. The caregivers understand them less. They're less likely to support the woman in the way that is best for her. Okay, fine. So there's also a whole bunch of reasons that lead to the fact that if you are having a baby in a country that is not your own, you are you're more likely to have problems than a woman who was born in that country.
Horrible, but makes sense.
Yeah. Well, so one of the things that has been suggested, maybe what we should be doing then is to induce labour in migrant women at an early stage to reduce the risk of bad things happening, which is again something that there's this very strong belief. The kind of underlying assumption is that babies are less likely to die out of the uterus than they are in the uterus. But I think that is a little bit of a kind of misunderstanding, because the classification of then when a baby dies, the fault, the negligence, the incentives are much more in favour of acting from a medical profession rather than not acting.
Sure. There's also more to health than whether or not you're alive.
Yes, that is what we'd like to think of as a hygiene factor, but unfortunately often is the major determinant of decision making.
Sure, all right.
But so there was a really big study which we've talked about before called the ARRIVE study, which was a randomised controlled trial that said to women before they had a baby, do you want to choose to have induction of labour at this point, or do you want to wait until you have a baby? And there were various problems with this study, because many women actually didn't want to even think about induction of labour. So they had a much smaller sample size. The study wasn't powered to detect differences in in migrant women.
Yeah.
But there's been this kind of belief that actually if you were to give inductions to these women, they've got no higher risk of C-section, and maybe it could protect against stillbirth.
Right.
Even if the baby dies afterwards, which is again this problem with statistical.
Yeah, but it's not stillbirth if it dies afterwards.
It's not stillbirth if it dies afterwards,
so it's not in your books.
Oh, it's really difficult. But anyway, but so what this study said was, okay, we are going to look at the records from Victoria, Australia, the state of Victoria. And they looked at the records of about 125,000 migrant women, so really, pretty big cohort. And they compared whether if you do induction of labour, does it reduce the risk of stillbirth? Does it reduce the risk of C-section, of instrumental birth, of babies being admitted to the neonatal intensive care unit?
And
so they were basically saying, is induction of labour better for these women? And they found that there was no improvement in the perinatal mortality rate, so it didn't affect stillbirth at all.
Wow.
if you induced labour for many groups, virtually all groups, at least for some of the weeks, it increased the risk of caesarean birth.
Sure.
And so in general, it made you more likely to have a caesarean birth.
Yeah.
And unsurprisingly, the earlier you induced labour, the more likely your baby is to go into a neonatal intensive care unit because the baby's just not ready.
Yeah.
But so what this was useful to say is that many women many migrant women in different countries face pressure to have their labour induced because of some of the results of the ARRIVE trial. Ethnicity shouldn't be a big driver of whether or not you are told to have induction of labour. It shouldn't be told to have, but often it can be more coercive than it would like to be. But actually, what this study says is that if you look at the data, there is no evidence that inducing labour prevents any of the adverse health outcomes that you're trying to avoid, and it may increase the risk of some of the other problems.
If you are a migrant about
if you
to
are
be
a migrant
mother.
woman, a migrant woman in Australia.
No, I would wager that is true for all women, but this paper doesn't say that, right?
There's a bunch of other papers coming out at the moment which look at different population groups. This one was just focused on women from migrant populations.
Funny. Well, two things are quite funny. One is the amount of manual gesticulation you were doing during describing that. I've never seen your hands move so much. The other is how easy it is, having read a bunch of papers on this, to say, yeah, of course, that all makes perfect sense. But it's so easy to forget that advice to have induction is still the norm.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely insane given the level of evidence at the moment.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, I was offered suggested induction for 2 out of 3 of my babies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember. I was annoyed.
Yeah.
And that was multiple years ago now.
Yeah.
And the data has only the amount of evidence around not doing that has grown exponentially since then.
Yeah. And I think as parents of a child with cerebral palsy, and cerebral palsy is often given as a reason the induction is suggested to reduce the risk of oxygen deprivation and brain damage. The evidence around the kind of protective mechanisms that occur at the end of pregnancy is increasingly strong. And also, rising induction rates have done nothing to alter the rates of cerebral palsy.
Yeah.
You probably just get children getting cerebral palsy from different routes. Anyway, I'm sorry. We could get properly worked up about this, couldn't we?
Yeah.
Right. But no, that's my news.
That's
Induction of
lovely
labour.
news.
There we go.
I think we've both had great news. Well done, us. Let's talk about an article.
Yes.
Which article? We
We are talking today about the first in a series of 3 articles.
Yes, of course.
Which are what I would suggest are the 3 no-brainer wins for child health. If you want to make a decision that you don't have to keep putting effort in, you make a single commitment that then becomes kind of easier and easier to stick to.
Yep.
I reckon it's these 3.
What are the 3?
The 3 are, I hope you enjoy the
Drum roll, please.
alliteration. Yeah. Today, shoes.
Shoes.
In 2 weeks' time, sugar.
Sugar.
And in another 2 weeks' time after that, sunshine.
Sunshine. Got it. Shoes, sugar, and sunshine.
Yep, perfect.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, I know a little bit about shoes myself, Guinevere, having just come back from 5 days in the US inventing shoes for the world's coolest shoe company. That I'm not allowed to say on record, but if you come and ask me, I'm allowed to say who they are. Just lawyers are so odd. Anyway, I know that your standard Western shoe for kids is a little bit higher at the back than it is at the front. A little bit, not very. We're not putting kids in stilettos. I know that they're pretty stiff, and that gives you spring and bounce and protects your foot from cobbles. And I know that they are a bit pointy at the front to make them look speedy. And
Make your feet look smaller.
Make your feet look smaller because it's very important that we all have tiny feet.
Yeah.
Because it makes 6-year-olds look sexy.
Oh.
Yeah, and yet, shrug and shudder all you like at that statement, but I said it deliberately because it is a weird, strange thing that we bring concepts from adult fashion into kids' fashion.
Yeah.
Anyway, again, I could get proper blazing about that. I'm not going to. So, kids' shoes, currently, a little bit higher at the back than at the front, quite stiff and a bit skinny at the front, yes?
Yeah.
Is that a problem? If so, why?
So, well, it is a problem. And at multiple different levels. So let's focus on the feet first. If you squash toes together,
Yes.
what do you reckon happens?
They get athlete's foot.
They do get athlete's foot. Oh my goodness, I'm like 30 years down the line from having really bad shoes that gave me athlete's foot, and I still can't get rid of the fungal nail infection I have from those. Anyway,
Sexy.
really sexy. We're sharing everything on this podcast. But yes, you can get damage to the tissues that can be non-resolvable in the long term.
Yep.
But you also change the shape of the bones and joints. So I never realised growing up until like 4 or 5 years ago when I started looking at this, that actually my feet that I thought were perfectly normal shape are not, because the widest part of them is at the ball of the foot, not across the toes.
Sure. Your widest part goes across the bottom of the ends of your metatarsals.
Yeah. Which I just thought was, I thought that was normal because that's the shape of shoes, but that's the reason that my feet are the shape of shoes. But yes, so they're not the right shape, which means that children's toes tend to overlap. They're more likely to get foot pain because their foot is not held in the shape that the foot wants to be. That's obvious, right?
Just as an aside, where should the widest part of your foot be?
The widest part of your feet should be across the toes. And if you want to see a lovely picture of a newborn baby's foot, I advise you to check out the article in the links.
Very good.
So that's one. You squash the toes, which makes your feet uncomfortable. Fine.
Yeah, horrible.
The next bit is that they're really stiff, as you said, which it's useful not to have thorns poking in the bottom of the feet.
Yep.
I give you that. But if your shoes are really stiff, you immobilise the feet. So the 26 different joints or bones.
26 bones. It's 45 something
38.
joints.
I think it's 38 joints and 26 bones in your feet.
Yep.
Don't move
Per
properly.
foot.
Perfect.
Or is that
no,
total?
perfect.
Oh, there's so many.
So many. But all of them need to wiggle. That's what joints are for. If
I'm
we
used to
didn't
horses. They've only got like 3 bones per foot.
No, human feet are ridiculously complex. But yeah, so you need to be moving all of the joints in your body multiple times a day. And if you put your feet in effect foot coffins that are completely immobile, you end up with joints in your feet that stop working as well. And that leads to bunions, it leads to hammer toe, it leads to foot pain, discomfort. I can see you wiggling all your toes individually.
I'm doing this so that
joints.
You said move them multiple times a day. I'm here wiggling my toes.
Yeah, it's one thing that Katie Bowman said. Like, you should be aiming to move all of your joints at least once a day, which sounds like a real kind
Low
of
bar.
real
That's
low
really low
bar.
bar.
But then you're like, oh, hang on, if I moved that joint today. Anyway, I digress. So yes, stiff soles are basically make your feet often the most sedentary part of your body, which seems so counterintuitive.
Yep.
But if they don't move, they get problems.
Okay.
And finally, if you put heels on the back of your shoes, what it does is it shifts where your centre of gravity goes right down your whole body. And the problem with that is that the way that your joints are constructed and the way your cartilage is thicker, where your muscles are designed to be the right shape for, is when your joints rest and move through. Evolved. When you rest in a position that is not a natural one, you end up loading the cartilage incorrectly. You end up with muscles that are the wrong length and strength. So you increase the risk of knee osteoarthritis, back problems, even neck problems, because your body has to compensate all the way up.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I'm seeing a change from what should be a strong, painless, wide at the toe, very stable foot that supports a body that is more agile and less likely to get arthritis, to a flappy, compressed little organ on the end of a wiggly leg that is less stable and more likely to get arthritis.
Yeah.
All because of choice of shoe. Yeah?
Yeah.
Right then. Very simply, and this is meant to be an easy win, right? One of the 3 that you just do. You don't even put any effort into. What's the win? How do you win this?
The win here is to keep your children out of conventional shoes.
Okay.
In multiple different ways, and we'll talk about those in a moment. You will find that the child starts to choose shoes that are better for them because they recognise what good, comfortable, healthy feet feel like. Okay,
so you're devolving responsibility here to a child by not beating the good shoe sense out of them by breaking their feet to shoes.
Exactly. Because what you really don't want to do is be like, have these terrible looking shoes because they're good for your feet. Like, that doesn't fly with, as soon as a child is over, 6 or 7, it just doesn't fly.
Foot spinach.
Foot spinach.
Foot spinach.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't just force spinach on a child.
Yeah.
It's bitter and awful. You need to give them a range of interesting, delicious options that allow them to get into eating healthily without just being like, no, this is awful. As soon as your back is turned, I'm binning it and only eating Mars bars.
Yeah.
And I would assume the same is true for shoes, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. You want to make sure that a child's feet grow strong and healthy at the beginning. So they are used to having feet that are comfortable.
Okay.
And this means lots and lots and lots of barefoot time when they're young. If you go to the playground, take the shoes off. If they're in the garden, don't have them wearing shoes. Let them feel what the ground feels like. If they're tired on a walk, I think that's your one. If they're complaining about their legs being tired, be like, take your shoes off. Just brilliant. Works so well.
It's magic.
But it just helps them to see, oh yeah, okay, my feet work really well when they're in this way. They're comfortable. Shoes are a thing that we wear sometimes that is not that comfortable. And then as soon as they start wearing shoes, and you can ask them, you can show them how you tell if a shoe is good.
How do you tell if a shoe is good, Grandma?
I'm doing more gesticulation.
You're waving your arms
just
around.
imagine that I'm holding a shoe in between my two hands. What I look for are they nice and rounded at the front? So is there space for the toes? I look at the heel. Is the shoe flat along the whole sole, or is there a wedge or a heel? And finally, you twist. You want to roll them up in both directions. So roll them up,
sole up and sole
sole
down.
up and sole down.
Roll them towards the sole and roll them away from the sole.
Yep, and then you can twist in both directions. And the really crucial part is that the person who is wearing the shoes is the one who has to do the assessment. Because you, let's just sing your praises, you're extremely strong.
Yeah.
So you can, which also correlates with the fact that you are pretty heavy as well.
Also true.
So if you can distort shoes enough, then your weight is probably going to distort shoes enough.
I could roll up most pairs of shoes.
Exactly.
And I could probably get away with wearing most pairs of shoes.
Exactly. Whereas if you're not very strong, you're probably also very light, and you need to be able to do that yourselves. Sure. So the children will happily show other people why their shoes are good. Mm-hmm. And it means then, as they go through life, they will be able to assess whether a shoe is likely to be comfortable for them. But we don't have to police it. So as they get older, they're going to be able to pick shoes that are really uncomfortable. And that is fine, because actually those are learning experiences, and they can decide to make their own trade-offs. But they have a fundamental reference point about what their feet should feel like.
Okay.
If we put them in conventional shoes from a very young age, not only do their bodies grow in a different way, but also they don't have that reference point, so they can't help themselves to norm on shoes that are good for their feet.
So there are two possible ways to do this then. Mm-hmm. Which one do you mean? Do you mean the big win is teach kids to assess shoes by rolling them up? That's a single win or a single action. Mm-hmm. Or is the big win here put kids in mega bendy shoes to begin with, so if they ever then put on more traditional, uncomfortable, bad for your feet shoes, they rebel against the sensation? Which is
definitely the latter.
Definitely the latter.
The former one about teaching children to assess them, that's just a little thing that you can do. It's a little piece of knowledge, a tool that they can use.
Yep.
But the absolute basic one is don't break their feet.
Yeah. Yes. Don't break their feet.
Don't break their feet. So just thinking, I'm not going to choose conventional shoes. Now, there is a common criticism, Greg, which is, but minimal shoes are really expensive. And that is true, because
some of them.
Some of them are, because actually trying to make something, if you don't have loads of material to hide stuff in and sew stuff to and tuck it in, it's harder.
You need better materials. Better processes.
And they're also often premium, so they are at a higher price point.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
There is a really, really easy, cheap solution that is usually much cheaper than conventional shoes. And that is, Greg?
Those are wetsuit or water shoes. Wetsuit shoes, probably not, but water shoes, the cheap £5 ones you find on eBay with a flexible rubber sole and a fabric upper, especially if you rub a little bit of Gorilla Glue over the very front seam so tiny 3-year-olds don't scuff it off. You've got quite a long-lasting, very cheap, very bendy pair of shoes that often has cute jellyfish or unicorns on it that kids love. I could not believe our luck when we came across those.
And the market is really growing. So now there are so many, even in the last 6-7 years, so many more options. So my advice would be, as long as possible in the year, keep them barefoot where they can. For times they need to wear shoes, use water shoes for as long as you can. And actually, the children love them. So they will be wearing socks and water shoes in the UK well into November, December sometimes. And then we have a couple of months where it's too cold or too wet, and water shoes are not great in those situations when the two things come out. And so then we go for very lightweight wellies with
the invention
socks.
Of foam wellies has changed my life.
Yeah.
Or at least it would have changed my life if it had happened early enough. For those who don't know what we're talking about and still think of wellies as those hard plastic shin sanders that we used to have, imagine a croc and then imagine that's a wellie. Those things are real now. You can buy them at Tesco for basically nothing.
Yeah.
There you go.
There we go. That's why I think shoes are such a no-brainer.
Simple. Put it in the kid's head.
Yeah.
Don't let them in any way think that big uncomfortable shoes are normal.
Yeah.
And then when they do eventually try them on, they will rebel and go, what is this disgustingness?
Well, you can at least make their own choice.
Exactly. Well, that was great. Thank you very much for a short, sharp win there, Dr. Gwen Bradbury. Mm-hmm. You've been listening to... No.
What question?
I don't want to do a listener question.
Oh, no.
No, I'm kidding, I do. What's the listener question?
The listener question is... Gwen, how do you help a child expand their jaw and strengthen it? Just got the word from our dentist that our 8-year-old doesn't have room for an adult tooth to come through.
Interesting.
So, my advice was threefold. I suggested 1, tough chewing gum.
Yep.
So we use Phalim or mastic gum, which is sugar-free. It's not even sweet. You can reuse it multiple times, providing you keep it dry, and it's pretty tough.
Don't let it get dusty.
Don't let it get dusty. Yeah, you do not want to have...
Because if there's any silica...
Yeah.
If you live somewhere where there's any silica in the dust, and dust gets on the kids' chewing gum, like if they are chewing it and, I don't know, they do a disgusting 6-year-old thing and pick it out and put it on the table and then put it back in their mouth, and it's got dust in it, the silica will scratch up their teeth.
Yes. Good point.
So
careful of silica.
You're careful of dust.
Yeah. Well, it's the other point to make with chewing gum is build it into a routine. So maybe it's in the car for you. Maybe it's if you're watching television or something there. Maybe it's tablet time. I don't mind. Maybe it's bedtime story. Just if you have it as a thing that happens at a time, it will happen in the day. If you don't, it will not.
This gear, for people who haven't used it, by the way, I'm a large adult and I'm quite, masculine and butch and very macho.
Very defined jawline. Is this what you're going to say, Greg?
No, that's not what I was going to say. What I was going to say is this gear hurts me. It's hard work. It makes your jaw ache. Yeah. It sounds a bit nonsense. Oh, you'll improve your child with chewing gum, but this stuff is a very useful chewing aid. Yeah.
Other things, we talked about mouth breathing last week.
Yep.
Just making sure that your child holds their mouth closed.
Yep.
There's a whole bunch of myofunctional exercises that you can look at online. Quite a lot of them are around chewing, some of them are around making sure that you're holding your mouth in the right way. Taking the mouth if the child is having their mouth open during the night. And finally, just get them eating chewy foods. So, Greg, what are your top chewy food recommendations for kids?
Top chewy recommendations. I love a raw sweet potato.
Yes,
I think a raw sweet potato is not only delicious, they are really very nice, but they also, there's not much more that stresses your incisors anymore. We tend to eat bite-sized things nowadays, but like a full-on sweet potato the size of your head, it's very funny watching a child try and eat one, and it stresses out their jaw really, really well. Other good things, if you can get hold of, I don't know, biltong's probably the right stuff. Not American jerky, which is cut across the grain.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So jerky's cut across the grain, and biltong is pulled off in strips, so along the grain, and that then is much, much chewier. There are various other things that are like seaweed sticks and various things.
When we lived in Iceland, we used to have harfiskar, which is like dried fish. And I remember my parents used to give it to us on car journeys because you just put it in the children's mouths and then they'd get like 15 minutes of peace and quiet.
While you were chewing.
It's so chewy.
Amazing. They should make better pet chews for children.
Yeah, anyway. They really should.
Yeah.
It's called chewing gum.
So were those your 3 things?
Yeah, that was great.
Can I add one?
Yeah, go for it.
So we know that a child's jaw is 75% of its adult size by the time that kid is 4. Mm-hmm. And we know that it's 90% of the adult size by the time that kid is 12. Mm-hmm. The child of the reader here is 8, yeah? So I think what I'd add is, don't lose hope.
Yeah.
Children have massive heads. It's one of the reasons they look so funny.
And they fall over so
and
much.
they fall over so much. But even though you might look at a kid's jaw and think, oh, he hasn't got room for his tooth, there is still time.
Yeah.
Do not lose hope. Your standard bone growth things of get enough vitamin D, get out in the sunlight, get enough calcium, make sure you've got a good varied diet, get some vitamin C and get enough sleep. All of those things will also help your body to maximize on the effect of this chewing. So that's what I'd add. Standard bone growth procedure.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
No, thank you very much for making sure I didn't forget the listener question. Have you enjoyed this? Have you got anything else to add?
No, I've got nothing else to add.
Right. I look forward to hearing the other 2 parts of the Easy Win series in 2 and 4 weeks, respectively.
Sugar and sunshine.
Sugar and sunshine. Thank you very much. You have been listening to Growing Up Weird with me, Dr. Greg Dickens, and
me, Dr. Gwen Bradbury.
See you later.